June 6, 1816. Dawn breaks over the green mountains of Vermont, and the meadows look as if January has wandered into June. Cows stomp and bellow in confusion, their breath steaming in air that hovers just above freezing. Snowflakes, real, feather-edged flakes, drift onto half-planted cornfields and melt into muddy ruts. Farmers stare skyward, searching for an explanation that will not come. They have no way of knowing that 11,000 miles away, on the Indonesian island of Sumbawa, a mountain named Tambora has torn itself open and spewed a shroud of ash so vast it will blot, bend, and bruise the world's weather for nearly a decade. Tonight we follow that shroud, watch it steal the warmth from summer after summer, and trace the astonishing chain reaction that gave us famines, riots, migration waves, the first cholera pandemic, a Gothic masterpiece called Frankenstein, and even the humble bicycle. April 10th, 1815. Mount Tambora's summit glows cherry red, then incandescent white, and finally explodes with a roar heard more than 1,000 miles away on Java. For 3 days, the volcano belches a column of ash 40 miles high, far above the cruising altitude of a modern jetliner. 20 cubic miles of pulverized rock ascend into the stratosphere, where winds are swift and almost entirely free of rain. There, minute particles of sulfur and silicate begin a slow-motion circumnavigation of Earth. Within weeks, that cloud circles the equator. Within months, it creeps toward the poles. When the sun's light passes through those particles, it scatters, robbing Earth of roughly half a degree Celsius. An invisible theft, but one that will tip millions of lives into hunger. Because the stratosphere is bone dry, ash lingers for years, turning the sky a hazy brass by day and a lurid crimson at dusk. Sailors rounding the Cape of Good Hope report that the sun looks as through smoked glass. British Captain Basil Hall, cruising the Pacific, notes sunsets of purple so deep it lay beyond paint. J.M.W. Turner, the prodigious English painter, sets up his easel on the banks of the Thames and begins dabbing swirls of vermilion, magenta, and violet onto canvas. 2 centuries later, climate scientists will compare those pigments to modern spectrometer readings and realize Turner captured the spectral fingerprint of volcanic aerosols with uncanny fidelity. But color, though mesmerizing, is the prettiest symptom of a planetary illness. As summer 1816 approaches the northern hemisphere, the diseased sky begins to flex its real power. Early May. Nova Scotia sows wheat. The soil is cold, but the calendar demands action. On the 10th, the temperature plunges and hail shreds the new shoots. Church bells clang in alarm, not for sin or invasion, but for weather. Farther south in New England, farmers still trust that June will behave itself. They press corn kernels into neat furrows, muttering prayers older than the Republic. June 5th is balmy. June 6th dawns bright. By mid-afternoon, the sky turns iron gray. A wind smelling of raw ice knifes down from Canada, and flakes swirl over the ridges. That night, the ground crusts solid, and the corn dies in rows as tidy as soldiers. Vermonters will forever remember the season as 1800 and froze to death. Across the Atlantic, Paris hopes to rebound from 2 disastrous decades of revolution and war. Instead, spring rains refuse to quit, and when July arrives, the rain turns to sleet that varnishes vineyards and glass. Without grapes, there is no wine. Without wine, France's economy, already shaky, totters. Grain prices triple. Bakers pad loaves with sawdust. In London, the Royal Society's thermometer struggles to top 50 degrees Fahrenheit even in high summer. Newspapers coin a new verb, to bread riot. By August, bread rioting has swept from Devon through the Midlands to East Anglia. Desperate crowds smash windows, hijack wagons of flour, and hoist banners that read "Justice in Loaves." Magistrates invoke anti-insurrection laws last used during the Gordon riots of 1780. While Europe seethes, Asia droops beneath opposite extremes, not ice, but relentless water. The Yunnan Plateau of southwestern China normally basks in a mild, dry growing season. 1816 offers ceaseless drizzle and bone-soaking cold. Rice paddies resemble weed-choked ponds where seedlings drown before they root. Officials report famine in 10 provinces. Villagers eat river moss and the bark of pine trees. Farther south, Bengal waits anxiously for its life-giving monsoon, but volcanic interference nudges the rain several weeks later than usual. Stagnant pools born of the belated deluge become breeding grounds for Vibrio cholerae. Tens of thousands perish in Calcutta alone, and sailors haul the microbe across the Indian Ocean, seeding what historians now call the first cholera pandemic. By 1821, the disease reaches Moscow. By 1823, it claims lives in London and New York. Even the animal kingdom cannot dodge Tambora's lash. In Germany, the oat crop fails, and oats are a horse's principal food. Without horses, coaches stand idle, armies move with difficulty, freight backups strangle trade. In Mannheim, an inventive baron named Karl von Drais counts the emaciated carcasses outside town and wonders, what if a person could propel himself without hay-burning horsepower? He screws 2 wheels onto a wooden beam, adds a seat, and christens it the loft machine, the running machine. Riders straddle the device and kick against the cobbles, gliding yards at a time. Newspapers mock the contraption, but within a year, thousands scoot along the Unter den Linden Boulevard in Berlin, and the seed of the modern bicycle is planted, an unplanned sprout in volcanic soil. Meanwhile, on the shores of Lake Geneva, literary history is gestating. June 1816 should be glorious in Switzerland, yet the mountains brood under perpetual fog, and the water lashes the promenade like November. Lord Byron, recently exiled by scandal, leases the Villa Diodati and invites friends to escape socially, if not meteorologically. Among them are physician-poet John Polidori and a teenaged Mary Godwin, traveling with the radical poet Percy Shelley. Confined indoors by sleet and thunder, they compete to tell the scariest story imaginable. Byron offers a vampire fragment that Polidori will later expand into the first modern vampire novel. But Mary, listening to conversations about galvanism and the possibility of reanimating tissue, dreams of a scientist haunted by the hideous life he has created. The nightmare she scribbles onto scrap paper will become Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, a book that has never gone out of print. In a literal sense, the monster's spark is volcanic electricity humming in the charged air of that furious Swiss summer. While aristocrats spin tales, peasants suffer calculus far cruder. Calculate how long the root cellar will feed a family of 8. In County Mayo, Ireland, blight ravages potatoes years before the more infamous Great Famine of the 1840s. Desperate renters withhold rent. Absentee landlords send bailiffs. Evictions multiply. Many of those families board creaking transatlantic packets and sail for Boston or Quebec, arriving to find that North America too is in the grip of hunger. Some stay in cities, swelling tenement slums. Others heed land agents who promise fertile soil on the frontier. Wagon trains of Vermonters rattle along the Mohawk Turnpike toward the Genesee Valley. Diaries speak of families pushing west to outrun the bad weather. They will not entirely succeed. June frosts nip Indiana corn in 1817 and 1818, but the trek permanently shifts America's demographic center of gravity. Towns christened Kendall, Byron, and Parma in upstate New York still bear witness to their founders' frozen homeland. Economic repercussions reverberate into boardrooms and parliaments. In Britain, the newly passed corn laws slap tariffs on imported grain to protect aristocratic landowners. But when domestic harvests collapse, those tariffs double or treble the cost of a loaf. Textile workers in Manchester, earning shillings a week, cannot pay. Mass meetings demand repeal. Radicals such as William Cobbett rail against a bread tax upon the poor. The government responds with cavalry. In August 1819, mounted troops charge a peaceful rally on St. Peter's Field, an event soon nicknamed Peterloo in bitter homage to Waterloo. Though the Corn Laws linger until 1846, the year without a summer plants the seed of their eventual downfall and of Britain's broader reform movement. Not all voices foresee revolution. Some glimpse revelation. In London, physician Luke Howard, already famous for classifying clouds, correlates temperature diaries with accounts of dry fogs and finds a suspicious pattern linking cold summers to distant volcanic eruptions. Laki in Iceland, Vesuvius in Italy, and now Tambora. Howard proposes that stratospheric dust might dim sunlight worldwide. His conjecture is ridiculed as fancy, yet he has opened a new scientific front, the study of climate forcings. Far away in Berlin, Alexander von Humboldt reads similar reports and later includes volcanic climate effects in his magnum opus Cosmos, inspiring generations to view Earth as an interconnected system. Even in the depths of scarcity, ingenuity flickers. Farmers in Upper Canada experiment with turnip husbandry, planting frost-hardy roots instead of tender corn. Swiss alpine herders devise portable racks to dry hay quickly during brief sunny intervals, innovations that will persist in mountain agriculture. In New England, a millwright named Joseph Dart watches wheat prices soar and imagines mechanical elevators that could store bulk grain until markets stabilize. 2 decades later, his idea will revolutionize commerce on the Erie Canal. By 1818, the high-latitude climate begins a feeble recovery, but lagging seas and stubborn aerosols keep weather bizarre. The River Thames freezes in parts of consecutive winters. In Venice, low tides expose mudflats never before seen by living memory. Japanese officials record sakura, the cherry blossom, opening a full month late. Tambora's ash continues cycling through the upper atmosphere, falling gradually as invisible silt that fertilizes oceans with iron and sparks plankton blooms that feed fish and whales, a hidden bounty offsetting human loss. In South America, independent of the volcano yet framed by its food shocks, revolutionary armies under Bolivar and San Martin struggle to supply troops. Letters from quartermasters complain that maize rots in the field, that mules expire upon the road, yet the armies push on and liberate half a continent. Historians still debate whether weakened Spanish shipping, short of sailcloth, rope, and biscuit, hastened that liberation. Tambora may not have broken empires, but it nudged at their load-bearing walls. By 1824, the sulfur veil thins enough that ordinary summers return. Children born that year will taste strawberries in June, something older siblings scarcely remember. Wine casks in Bordeaux brim once more. Merchants toast the vintage as a resurrection. Yet scars remain. The cholera pathogen unlocked by monsoon chaos has found a permanent ecological niche and will resurge in wave after deadly wave. Settlements on the American frontier, seeded by climate refugees, thrive and multiply, quickening the dispossession of indigenous nations. The Corn Law's moral stain will haunt British politics until the Irish famine forces final repeal. And the imaginative shockwaves linger longest. Turner's incandescent skies redefine romantic art. Frankenstein becomes a mirror for industrial angst. The pedal-powered velocipede evolves into the safety bicycle, sparks a craze, and silently foreshadows a future where personal movement is no longer tethered to muscle or hay. What, then, do we learn from a summer that never was? That Earth's climate is a vast interlocking clock, and one volcanic gear can shift the whole mechanism. That local tragedies, snow in June, rotting rice, braid into a single global narrative. That human beings, hurled into crisis, can answer with barbarism or brilliance, sometimes both at once. We learn that the same sky which paints sunsets also sows pandemics, that innovation sometimes rides on the heels of desperation, and that preparedness, stockpiling grain, studying clouds, sharing knowledge, is a more reliable guardian than wishful thinking. Today, satellites peer down at every plume rising from the ring of fire. An eruption on Sumbawa would ping servers in Geneva before its echo faded. Governments maintain grain reserves. Relief agencies pre-position medical kits. Yet carbon, slow and insidious, performs a different alchemy on sunlight, trapping rather than scattering heat, and we find ourselves again at the mercy of invisible particles. Tambora's ghost taps our shoulder, reminding us that physics does not negotiate, that prudence is not panic, and that hidden tales from history are really warning flares lobbed across time. If this journey through ash and ice stirred you, subscribe for more forgotten stories that shape the world you know. Share which moment struck deepest. The crimson sunsets Turner turned to canvas. The nighttime birth of Frankenstein. or the ragged migrants trudging toward a new frontier. Until we meet again, keep your lanterns trimmed and your curiosity bright, because history hides its best tales in plain sight, waiting for someone, perhaps you, to uncover them.